And the dunk. And Simmons punching.
Trying to clear out and take him, give him some space. Here he goes, and he's...
We read and react offense.
Look at Simmons.
Ben Simmons, this is his availability since the 2022 season. So as we all know, after that debacle of a series, he decided to just miss all these games, some of which was for a holdout. The other one turned out to be a back issue. Last season, he came back, played a few more games as well. Again, some of which for an injury, most of which actually was just for holding out as well. And now here we are this season where, again, he's missing a lot of games. Like a lot of games. Now, what exactly does all this translate to? Shams put out a tweet where it is true that Ben Simmons will be out for the entire season, if I can find it. Next, Ben Simmons is out for the remainder of the season while he consults with a specialist and explores treatment options for the nerve implantation. Basically, he's going to be out for the entire season, missing a significant amount of games. It's tough, because Ben Simmons, as we just saw with the original photo as well, he's been out for quite some time. This thus leads into other conversations about what exactly our team's going to do with Ben Simmons, especially when it comes to like the remainder of like his contract. Ben Simmons has actually played fewer games than LeBron playing for the Los Angeles Lakers. Paolo Banchero has actually played more minutes than Ben Simmons in the 2020s, which is kind of crazy. And probably the most important thing to talk about is with the $40 million expiring salary next season, the Nets could attempt to trade him with this summer, or the possibility of even buying out, which kind of brings us to a much bigger problem about where exactly is this going to happen with Ben Simmons moving forward. Now, it is crazy. You know, I remember when Ben Simmons came into the NBA, he was supposed to like tear up the NBA, tear the league up, be the face of the franchise, be a part of the process, and how things have changed and shifted has been pretty drastic. I'm kind of torn on exactly how I'm supposed to talk about this, because on one hand, you know, this is another player who came into the league who didn't really live up to the hype, and he was supposed to be the next LeBron, the next big thing, great passer, open field, open space, can handle the ball, really transcendent player, and in theory was going to be great next to Joel Embiid and bring that team to a level of success that they've never seen before in their entire history. But unfortunately, more or less what it has been a lot of disappointment from start to finish. Obviously, as we all know, Ben Simmons never translated with his jump shot. Another problem that Simmons desperately faced was a level of confidence. Even when he doesn't shoot the ball, his inability to get to the rim, he's not attacking, he's not aggressive. And I do believe just a lack of motivation and progression of who he was as a player was something that was going to be a problem with him throughout his entire career. This is something that many people talked about before he came into the NBA. There were a lot of conversations about, oh, well, Simmons didn't have the drive, he didn't have the determination. He wasn't a player that you could really rely on and build off of his game. And that was something that I think a lot of people were concerned with, but didn't want to address and talk about, because it is something that was a bit concerning from start to finish throughout his career. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of that manifest and really play out. The crazy part about Ben Simmons, however, is that I don't think that his game is completely not utilized or usable in the NBA. I don't believe that whatsoever. Ben Simmons is a player who, if he is a good passer, defender, if he can do those things, he is still playable in today's league. He just has to play a very specific role. He has to play a very specific style of basketball. He has to be put around certain players. Unfortunately, he's not the face of a franchise. He's not so good that you can build around him, but there's still a lot of playing styles in which he could play in. Shout out to my man in the chat where he said he could be an aggressive Draymond Green. I think Draymond's role and who he is really, that's a great way to mold your game behind. Also, shout out to another one. That's not cap. The Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets in theory should actually be a really good team for him to play. 2 non-floor spaces with him and Nicholas Claxton. So that's going to be kind of tough. The truth of the matter is, like, bro, there's teams out there that could actually utilize him as a player. That was something else that a lot of people were talking about, is that with the amount of money that he is owed, there are quite a few teams out there that are looking for his services. So we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, Golden State Warriors, Toronto Raptors, Sacramento Kings, and then the San Antonio Spurs, who could be interested in receiving Ben Simmons if he does get bought out of his contract. But, what type of player he is and what type of role he is going to be very questionable. So I don't really think that this is going to be the end of Ben Simmons. I don't think this is going to be where things go and stop because of who he is as a a player. Of course, the back issues are certainly going to be a problem. And if those are nagging, I think that's probably a much bigger issue, more so than anything else. And then we can have different conversations. So on one hand, I want to be optimistic. On the other hand, though, it's hard for me to be that optimistic from a player who decided to not move around, who decided to not improve, who decided to not get better, who we all knew for a fact had a flaw in his game and decided to not work on it whatsoever. So when you were healthy, when you didn't have back issues, when everything was in your favor, when you were playing on a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, when you were on a team that actually had all the pieces, they gave you everything that was necessary. They gave you the players, they gave you the talent, they gave you the coaching, they were patient with you, and you still did not develop those things. I have a hard time believing now, when you're not making the amount of money that you used to make, that you will be even incentivized to do those things. When I say coaching, because Bruce Senior did point this out, when I say coaching, I'm talking about coaches that were willing to work with him, coaches that were willing to move some pieces around. Brett Brown, there's stories where Brett Brown sat down with his parents and said, Mr. Simmons, Ben is a good guy. He's a hard worker, and you raised a really good son, but we just need him to shoot a little bit more. That's a grown-ass man. If your coach gotta come to your mom Duke's house and talk to you about playing basketball, my nigga, what are you doing? So at some point, we gotta hold some accountability to these players, bro. Like, we're not gonna sit here and act as if like he wasn't given opportunities to really display who he was as a player. And unfortunately, now due to back injuries, it legitimately could be done. He's cooked. He's finished. It's finito. It might be over. And I don't feel that sorry for him, because he still got the money. He still got paid. He got his bread, his moolah, his cheese, his feta. He got all of that. 40 M's. He getting paid to basically do nothing. His manyan, as Eli would say. He got all that and literally did nothing with it. So at the end of the day, I wish the best for him. I obviously want, a player of Ben Simmons' status and what he was supposed to be in this league. It is crazy to go from being the next best thing, being the one who's supposed to really change the NBA, be the face of a franchise. He went from that to looking at being out of the league at age 28. He's 28, Chad. We should be looking at the best part of his years. We should not be having conversations of buyout. We should not be having conversations of how many games is he going to play. We should not be having conversations of, well, can he come off the bench and play this role? We should be looking at the better years of Ben Simmons. And I do believe there's teams out there who have the personnel that can really maximize who he is as a player, but he has to be aggressive. He has to be willing. He has to want better for himself and the organization, the team he plays for. If not, it's done, it's cooked. And unfortunately, actually, the Mavericks are a really good team, but then you have to say Luka. Actually, chat, yeah, what team do y'all think he should go to? Denver wouldn't be bad. Suns, I don't know about that. Mavs, I think Warriors wouldn't be bad either. Spurs wouldn't be bad either, actually. Spurs actually be really, really good. I think there's a couple of teams that he could go to and being very serious, but a lot of it comes down to coaching. Like, can you build a scheme around him where he's like whipping and passing the ball around? And also, more importantly, like his willingness. Because at his best, all-league defender, one of the best defensive players in the NBA. And also, I got to say this, in his back, because even with his defensive prowess, if he's not going to be that good defensively because his back, then a lot of his value does diminish and drop a little bit. But who knows? At the end of the day, I think a lot of people, we rooting for Ben Simmons. We want the best for him, but also we saw how you dealt with the situation that you was presented in Philly. It didn't leave a lasting image on a lot of people. I think a lot of people view Ben Simmons in a certain light, and I have a hard time believing that moving forward, receiving less money, it's going to be tough. Bill, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.